customers. Okay, so there is sampling frame and sampling unit. Sampling frame. If I want to conduct a study, I'm giving an example of University of Lilongwe because this is where you spend most of your time. So if I give other examples, it might be difficult for you to comprehend. That's why I'm giving examples of university. So don't be surprised, don't be worried also. Sampling frame is a list or database from which sample is drawn. Okay, it includes all eligible members of the population. The accuracy and completeness of the sampling frame are critical for ensuring a representative sample. A good example would be, if I want to study about University of Lilongwe, student satisfaction survey, a sampling frame for me is basically the total number of students at the university. Now, where do I get this number? I can go to the registrar's office, request for this number. Now, what do you think would be some common challenges, a few challenges that I might face if I rely on the data from the registrar's office? Just go in his office now and say, give me the number of students and their names and their phone numbers. That becomes my sampling frame. It is from that sampling frame that I will be able to sample. I will be able to get a representation of the student body from that sampling frame. But if I just get that list from the university registrar's office, what likely challenges will I face? Accuracy, isn't it? Because the list in the registrar's office may not always be updated. There could be a student who registered but stopped attending. So the registrar will update that one by the end of academic year, isn't it? Yeah, the registrar will not update his list every day. Do we agree it? Yeah, so if I just get a list from his office and use that one as a basis for me to sample, I will commit some errors because I might find some students who left. Some registered, they never came. So I can either get a list, or if I want, I may decide to construct my own list. And for 1 week, I can be able to get, either I can go into classroom after classroom, trying to find who belongs to this module, or I can ask lecturers to provide me their list, or I can get at least a new compilation of those that wrote mid-semester exams. That one maybe could be a more accurate list. It will show me who is around. So the sampling frame, you can get one that's already constructed somewhere, or in some cases, a sampling frame you can construct yourself. So that's why we're saying that the sampling frame is the actual list or database from which a sample is drawn, and it includes all the eligible members of the population, and the accuracy and completeness of the sampling frames are critical for ensuring a representative sample. But what is also very critical is the sampling unit. Sampling unit is a basic unit from which the sample is selected. It could be an individual, household, or organization. For example, if a study is about customer preferences, each individual customer might be a sampling unit. Some people they call this element. Okay, sample element. Now, when you've got a list, maybe I should put it this way. Remember that we said that research per se can either be qualitative or quantitative. You remember that? Yeah, or mixed. So when you are engaging in sampling method, that must also come back to you in your mind. So research can be qualitative, can be quantitative, or can be mixed. Research can be qualitative, can be quantitative or mixed. Now, when you are doing determining a sampling method, you also have to have that in mind. Okay. For research that is quantitative, the sampling method, you use probability. When the research is qualitative, you use non-probability. Non-probability sampling, okay, is qualitative. This one is quantitative. If you are using mixed method, then you better use probability and non-probability. Okay, non-probability simply means non-scientific. Yeah, that's what it simply means. Now, you've got a study you want to do. Your design is qualitative. So you have non-probability sampling research, sampling technique. When you use non-probability sampling technique, you have the following methods. Okay, convenient sampling, judgmental sampling, quarter sampling, and snowball sampling. Convenient sampling, if I'm doing convenient sampling, I can, for example, decide only maybe to ask my students who I can easily meet, or any other person around who I can easily interact and meet. Convenient sampling. Okay. But judgmental sampling, it means I will be able to identify only those that I am of the view will provide me with relevant information pertaining my study, based on maybe their personal experience before, also based on maybe their previous knowledge about the subject matter. Okay. Usually you get what we call expert opinion. Okay. If I decide to use quarter sampling, it means I decide to group the students as first year, second year, third year, fourth year. Now, in those groups, I make sure that I get information from year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4. In that context, then I've been able to do quarter sampling. I've divided my population of University of Lilongwe students into quarters, and the quarters has been in relation to the academic year they are studying in at that time. Okay, there's another one. There are some studies. I can give you an example. If I'm doing a study about people who were once successful in business, but their business has collapsed, and would like to find out what happened, and if they're given a chance, what should happen? What happened? And if they're given a chance, then what should happen? I may not have a total number of those available, but I may also not know them. But I might know one of them. So when I contact one of them and find out about what happened, having completed my interview with this individual, I can also go again and say, but who else can provide me with this information? Who else can provide me with this information? And after getting the second one, And when I'm done collecting data, I can also ask who else can help me collect this information. So as the respondents pass me from themselves, among themselves, from one to another, to another, to another, that is what we refer to as snowball sampling. Getting the point there? Yeah, that's what is referred to as snowball sampling. That's why we are saying that participants recruit other participants, often used in a hard-to-reach population. And also, if the subject matter is where it's very hard for you to know who the next person who had the similar experience is. Let's go to probability. Probability, scientific. That's why I have split it here. Quantitative. When you use the probability, this is the most common sampling. I think what I should do, apart from this PowerPoint, I can provide you a more detailed explanation about what these are all about. I'm explaining them, but maybe you might benefit from it because it is important, very, very important research. I'll tell you, most of the time when students fail a dissertation, usually is because of this particular section. You know that? Most of the time when students fail a dissertation, mostly it's because they are not able to do well in this section. That's why they don't understand. Usually students will mix up. They will mix, for example, they will take techniques that are used in qualitative, in non-probability. Okay, some students will say, I'm going to use a quantitative research design. But when it comes to sampling, they will say, I'll use the non-probability sampling and get the quota sampling. There is a mistake there already. Because you cannot take a quota sampling under non-probability, which is supposed to be under qualitative. You cannot use it in quantitative. So you cannot do simple random, which is probability sampling, when you have said that your study is qualitative and you're using non-probability. Now, simple random is where every unit has an equal chance of being selected. In simple random, let me get a list of all students. When I get that list of all students, I can easily sample. Okay, say for example, 500 students. I want 100 to 120 students. The question is, who should be in the 120? That's $1 million question. Should it be Takuzwa? Should it be Nomsa? Should it be Niger? Now, if I sample Niger, Nomsa, and the Takuzwa and Kimberley, someone can easily come back to me and say, hey, these are your friends, you know them. And you've selected them because you know they will give you the positive response you're looking for. When I choose you in that way, I've not done simple random. I've done convenient. But if I just run a random, there are different methodologies and there is a formula to do it. If I do it that way, ultimately, I can select any. And in some cases, some of those that I've mentioned might not be selected. Simple random. Systematic random is when you've got a large population, and from that particular large population, you don't know, you cannot have entire sample size. Okay, simple random, we've got sample size, and you're sampling from a sample size. Okay, you've got a total population, you've got a sample frame, you know the total number in the sample frame, and from that total number, you have calculated a formula to identify the suitable sample size. But in stratified sampling, you don't have a suitable, a total population, a total list of the sampling frame. There are some cases, for example, if you're looking at customers, you may not have a total number of this sampling frame. And in some cases, you may not even be able to have a sampling frame at all. So, you may say, let me start by ShopRite, Game, path. People usually pass from ShopRite to Game. If there is a place in town with heavy traffic in terms of people, is the people moving from Game Crossing to ShopRite in the old town. That place, in a single day, there are a lot of people that pass through there. And that's one of the places where there is heavy trafficking of people. So if that place, that heavy trafficking, I can decide that I want to find every 50th person to answer my questionnaire, or every 10th person. So someone comes, I'll start with this one. He answers, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, the 10th one, I get the response. And then 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, the 20th one. Why am I doing that? Because I still want to create an element of luck, isn't it? I don't want to be seen to have influenced who I want to pick, so I want to bring an element of luck, but at the same time, I'm limited by the fact that I don't have the entire sample frame through which I can draw a sample. Because in the simple random, I will have a sample frame, a total number of students from University of Lilongwe, who are 500. And from there, I can select 120 randomly. But the systematic one, I don't have that luxury to have the sampling frame. So how do I have a list through which I can be able to select a particular number randomly? I can't. So then my randomness will be as a result of getting the nth population. So like the example I just gave. Then there are cases, for example, I want to interview students, but I want to make sure that there is gender representation. I want male and female. I can stratify my sample. Okay, stratified sampling is dividing the population into subgroups, which are referred to as strata, and sampling from each subgroup proportionately or disproportionately. So it can be gender, or if I'm interviewing, for example, people who are employed, I can stratify them by the salaries they get in terms of different brackets. Okay, or cluster sampling. These are dividing population into clusters, then randomly selecting the entire cluster of study. These are usually more complex studies that can use the cluster sampling. Cluster is say for example, I want to do a study about Lilongwe. But the entire Lilongwe, which area should I conduct my study? So I can compile a list of areas in Lilongwe. Area 1, Area 2, Area 3, Area 4, Area 5, Area 6, up to Area 50. The areas are clusters. Now, I can run a random to select a sample of the clusters. So it can be identified that I have selected Area 24, Area 3, and Area 15. These are the 3 clusters that have been sampled. So why did you come up with Area 24? It came randomly. I had no influence. What about Area 15? It was also randomly sampled. I had a list of all clusters and conducted a random sample of 3 clusters. And I was able to get these 3 that were chosen by chance. That's the issue of clustering. Yeah. It will be very important for you to also be able to come up with what we call sample determination. Remember, I was saying out of the 500 students, I may need only 120. Out of the 1,000 students, I may only need 300. That 300 or that 120 is the sample size. So determining sample size is crucial to ensure that the findings are generalizable to the entire population. Factors that influence sample size include population size. Okay. Larger population require larger samples, but the diminishing returns occur after a certain point. Margin of error. The smaller the desired margin of error, the larger the sample needed. Confidence level. Higher confidence levels, for example, 95%, require large samples. Variability in population. Population with more variability need larger samples to accurately capture the diversity. Yeah. Sampling error versus non-sampling error. Okay. Sampling error occurs because a sample rather than the entire population is used. If you have 500 students and you interview all 500 students, there will not be any sampling error. But if you have got 500 students and then you are interviewing 120, there is likely going to be a sampling error. So these errors can be reduced by increasing size and using appropriate sampling methods. There are formulas that are used. Non-sampling errors are errors that arise from other factors unrelated to sampling, and these may occur due to data collection issues. For example, if you are interviewing and then you make mistakes in the interviewing, data entry errors, inaccurate responses, these are non-sampling errors. So why are we talking about them? It will be very important for you, if you want the results of your study to be acceptable, to ensure that you manage sampling and non-sampling errors. Because when you have got a bigger proportion of sampling errors, your study will not be accepted. Yeah, I think we can, it's 10 o'clock, eh? Yeah. We can stop there. When we meet again, we can talk about sampling steps. Yeah, and then, yeah. Let's stop there. We're getting a little more deeper now into research. I hope you have noticed. Yeah. But the good thing about you is you're also learning research methodology. So some of the things, you also learn them there. So it will be like a revision. Okay. All right, thanks. Yeah.